The topic tonight that we're going to discuss and share with you all is around workplace culture. And so today, we want to dive into understanding the different workplace cultures. What are they? How do they form? And why do they matter? Right? And culture isn't just the vibe at the office. This isn't just the hanging out at the water cooler or at the coffee station. It is the system of values, behaviors, and practices that shape how we work together. And this is something that is very important regardless of team size or organization. This could be a two-person team and you still require a culture to work together, or it could be 1,000 team corporation and you still need to have active cultures. And they always break down into 4 specific types. And we'll go and dive each into every single one. And we'll have some conversation points here back and forth with Willie and I as we discuss our experiences with each one of these cultures. And then we're going to open it up to the group to discuss further how these cultures affect your output in the workplace environment. So the first one that I'm going to start with tonight is the happy accident culture. And this is the one that is most relevant and seen in small organizations. This is the 1 to 5, 1 to 10 type of organization where this culture emerges naturally. It is often shaped by the founders or long-term employees. So you might find a founder who starts a company, he brings his brother, his cousin, his good friend, they go into business together and they start this journey. And this feels nice, warm, authentic, especially in the beginning when it's a small team and everybody's getting along. But however, as this organization grows, 10, 15, 20 employees, this is where it becomes really a point of crisis because the inconsistent messaging outside of the owner starts to create misalignment and broader objectives. So Willie, as we talk about the happy accident culture, I know you've experienced this. Let's share your thoughts around how your company went through some of this in its early stages.
For sure. Yeah, I would say for us, it was, yeah, in the beginning, you want to serve everybody that is coming in the company, and you want to make everyone feel welcome, and you kind of let things go as you keep adding people. It's for us, it was I was pretty easy going, and even though I saw something that I should be probably taking care of and saying, no, this is not the way we do it here, it kind of went off the rails, and or whatever. It kept building upon that, where if once you start that letting that slip, that's when you create this culture that you're later looking at and asking yourself, how did it get here, and how am I going to fix that? So Hector,
Yeah.
you're going to share that, probably how that goes.
Absolutely. So one of the things that in happy accident culture, I don't want to take away from the organic and authentic feel that is good with that small team. Because when it's that small, you've got each other's backs. Again, generally your close friends, your family, or your relatives that are in business together. And that's okay. What I want to ensure that you take away in if today you're in a happy accident culture by design, I want you to start to create some structure around that. And that means that you are consistent in your expectations. By doing so, you're going to ensure that regardless if you're talking to your brother or cousin or family member and you're talking to an employee, the expectations remain the same. That ensures that the messaging is consistent across the entire organization, as small as it is. It is something that's going to ensure that the team starts to see that the favoritism isn't the way to go, that seniority is not the way to go. It is output and it is alignment to the goals and objectives of the organization that are key for success. So just as if we're, sort of dropping in some nuggets here for you folks, ensuring that you have that alignment. Inconsistency is the key as we talk about the happy accident culture. It's a healthy one when you begin, but it can create some real large pitfalls as your organization grows and evolves. All right. So we're going to move on to the second of the workplace cultures. And this one is something that I like to call the command and control culture. This is very common in structure and authority led organizations. This generally means that the leadership team or leadership folks dictate direction and others are expected to follow. Collaboration and innovation is generally not the most important. What this means is that these organizations are generally in the sectors that are very much like industry driven around like compliance and or where they're tasked to deliver projects on time, like construction organizations. This is very much where you're going to see that command and control. Again, it's something that you could see where it limits a lot of innovation. It discourages the employee engagement, and if it's not balanced, it really will start to impact feedback and flexibility across an organization. So, as an organization requires structure, I think this is a good thing. It's not one that you want to necessarily say, hey, I don't want structure in my organization. I'm going to be in the command and control, and I want everybody to be inclusive in the growth and in the alignment of the organization. Not necessarily. You want to communicate your expectations, uphold those values, and where you want to command is that we as employees, we as parts of the organization, we stay true to those. That's what's critical and important on a command and control structure. And where I also see an importance of implementing this short term is during chaotic times. And we've all lived it because we've all been around through a change in business, growth in business, a dive in business, or something that's out of our control. Like a few years ago, we all lived through a little thing called the pandemic, and we all had to adjust and put some processes behind how we did business and conducted business internally and externally. And therefore, we had to have some command and control and structure around our organizations. So, Willie, I know this one is something that you also lived through as your organization grew. Can you give us, some experience that you had through a command and control culture, and what were some of the pros and cons that you saw?
Yeah, for us, luckily, when the pandemic hit, we had implemented a structure already and redesigned all our roles and stuff in our business. So we had some accountability in place, and that really helped us get through the COVID challenge, and where we were aligned in our team where thinking back now, for me, it was I had one job back then. It was, guys, let's stay focused. What we need to do today. Let's not think too far ahead. But we had now that structure behind us, where that helped us really get through that pretty fairly strongly. And also we were okay with having some debates around in meetings, and we have kind of built that structure into where it was okay to express ourselves in our meetings, and if we didn't totally agree, let's just try to get to a point where we can all agree at the end of the meeting, and carry on what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. In that situation, dealing with crisis, it's healthy to have a command and control culture because you need it. You need to know who's on point. You need to know who's accountable for specific tasks, right? So, sorry, I'm dealing with a bit of a cold, but it's important to recognize that this culture is only to be applied short term. You should never allow your organization to always work under a command and control culture because the result is you're going to lose good people.
Mm.
You're going to lose creativity in your organization, and those good employees are going to leave you for an organization where they have more wiggle room, where they have the ability to express themselves and grow. So, again, bringing it back to applicability, put it in place when you need it. Put it in place when you have a big business change, a crisis that's happening, and or you have a project in which you need to deliver some strong timelines on. That's okay. You have top to bottom check-in points. And I'll give you an example of where I use this today. I still have every single day a performance huddle in all of the organizations that I work with. So that means that all of the operations managers and supervisors are accountable for reporting out what their day looks like, what they have accomplished, and what are some of the challenges they're facing in that day, and how can the team help overcome it. That's a complete command and control structure that I implement. I do it as a healthy way to ensure that everybody in the organization is up to speed on where they may be falling behind and where there may be issues. And so that's okay. That is placed that way. However, we also allow a lot of feedback and a lot of back and forth around what are some of the possible solutions and creativity around problem solving. But I just wanted to share how this could be healthy and also how it could be very disruptive if you allow it to be in your teams for too long. All right. So those are the first two cultures. We're going to move into one of the ones that I think is most disruptive and probably one that you see most common in small to mid-sized companies. And that is called the chaotic culture. So
This
this
one I
is
could really speak to.
yeah, this is one where once you get past that 30 employee uh organization size, it starts to affect the entire group. And this is when there's no clear leadership or direction because the owner is now so far removed from the day to day that it now relies on management and other leaders to continue to evolve the culture that the organization has put in place. And at first, it feels energizing. Like it feels good because you're getting stuff done, right? You're active, you're putting out fires, there's lots of ideas. However, because there's little structure, over time, this leads to burnout and confusion because you just don't know who's in charge of what and you start to cross against each other. So you have managers that give wrong direction, you have ownership that is out of touch, so they try to become the best friend of the organization and they make deals with employees and or with managers, and that those deals are sometimes outside of the structure that the organization has tried to put in place. So it is super chaotic and it really frustrating for those that like structure and that want to have a sense of stability. It surely allows for tons of creativity. This is where creativity thrives under a chaotic structure. And this is why at the beginning it feels good and it feels like you're getting a lot of good stuff done. But again, once you get to that threshold as you grow, that becomes super disruptive. And Willie, you said you can speak to a lot in this culture, right?
Absolutely. I used to keep thinking I needed to hire better experienced people. And but what I learned was you can hire the best people, and if your culture is broken, they become part of the issue. And meaning if you don't have clear roles and responsibilities for them to follow, they start doing what they think is best and so will the next person and the next person. And what you get is confusion and frustrated employees and a stressed out business owner.
Right. You can remember this, right, Willie?
So clearly.
You'd have a branch manager in Peace River who thought he was doing the right thing. He thought everything was going great. But then you go find out and the shop is misspending money left and right. They've got, all kinds of weird stuff happening. Employees are the ones that tell the bosses what to do because the manager is just trying to be their best friend,
Yeah.
right? And at the same time, you still have customers that are furious because they're not getting their freight on time or they're not getting what they're paying for. And it all starts to come back to broken communication and broken expectations.
I just want to add one piece here. I used to think, okay, is he the problem or is she the problem? And you know what? Who was the problem? It was me. I I'm the only person that or as in business owner, you are responsible to create the proper culture in your business. And we'll speak a little bit more to that later.
Absolutely. And and one of the things that I will add to that is, the business owner sets the tone, and the managers are to ensure that that tone and communication is consistent so that everybody else follows through, right? And so in that chaotic culture, because everybody's rowing at their own intentions and their own pace, it really creates disruption, right? And when I come into organizations and I see this, my first task is to say, all right, do we have people here that can get aligned with where this organization needs to go? And most times, unfortunately, it is the wrong hire. It is because you've brought somebody in who has a great resume, and they are supposed to come in and help put together some good processes and some good structures for your team. However, their culture is not aligned with your vision and with your core values. Therefore, they're preaching the wrong message, and they're going to get things completely out of whack. So I unfortunately have had the experience of coming in and letting a lot of those bad hires go. And you internally are going to have to make that decision on your own. You're going to look internally at your organization and you're going to say, which one of these individuals is just not a fit for my culture today? Right? Now, that Willie, I know you lived it. We talked through it many, many nights in our experiences together.
Yeah. And the solution to this to me is now so clear where it started with looking at our business on what kind of, or basically redesigning all our roles in our business and really looking at the business, what kind of roles we need in our business instead of looking at the person we or the people and building a role around the person. So the first step is really looking at your business, what kind of role you need, and maybe there's five key responsibilities that you need to attach to that role, how you can keep those people accountable, whoever you find to put into that role. And then the next step is really looking for the right person. And how you do that is you find a person that aligns with your core values, and then look at if they have the capacity to carry out the responsibility in that role. And then your next part is keeping them now accountable to those responsibilities.
That's it.
And once you do that, and I'm just talking for my own experience, our culture changed from night to day once we had this piece done in our business.
Now, here's the key thing that I want to hit on this though. You, as the owner, you know how in a chaotic culture, you could be the ultimate road obstacle remover, or you could be that road obstacle barrier, right?
Exactly.
So I want to ensure, how did you overcome being that person that would align with the complainers and those ones that came to you and said, hey, this is happening and I don't agree with this and we should do this? And how do you then stay firm? What were
Hmm.
your learnings on both when you had to be the buddy, but then you realized you had to be firm? How did you apply that?
Well, you know what? Once we had that clear organizational chart build out in our business, it came down to who are you reporting to? That's the person you're going to talk to about this issue. So I was lucky I had you. I could point them back to you and in our operation and say, no, you need to talk to Hector about that. And I had to train myself to not take on those issues that when they came to me, I had to really say, okay, you know what? I can't do anything about it right now. You have to talk to your direct report and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that story because it's important for those that are here today that may not be the owner, that you might be just that operator or that second in control or second in command in the organization. And so you have to remember your role is to ensure that you deliver consistent expectations. The consistency factor has to be there. And that is how you're going to gain momentum. That's how you're going to get trust, because you're going to be consistent across the board and you're going to align with the owner's vision. And that's what's important when you actually get things done. You can say, here's where we're going. This is why this is important. This is
Mm.
the goal that we have to achieve collectively. This is not a me objective. This is not what I'm here to make sure we deliver this. So whether, you're the owner's cousin, brother, or a new hire, I'm going to treat you the same way. I'm going to be consistent in my approach to you, right? And
Mm.
so that's what starts to kind of identify those individuals that will want to be part of a different culture and a more productive culture, or those that want to be in that chaotic, no rules, just get shit done, but it's increasingly painful, right? And so, that is one of my biggest watch outs in that chaotic culture, because it could feel productive because you're getting things done, you're getting stuff accomplished. But on the long term, it's affecting your morale. It will long term affect the growth of your organization. So learn to see it and learn to structure out of it and into the what I think is the best culture, and this is the intentional culture. This is built with intention. That's why it's called the intentional culture. All right, and this is the gold standard, and it is culture built on purpose. So it aligns with your company's mission, your vision, and your core value, which means your long-term goals. The intentional cultures fosters trust, consistency, and high performance, but they require leadership, commitment, and clarity. So this is everyone in the organization has to buy in, and again, has to be consistent in that. And what we talked about in your example, Willie, is how we went to an intentional culture, because you
Yes.
had created the structure internally where there was the right roles with the right accountability, and therefore they had the right check-in processes to hold everybody in place, right? Now, this doesn't mean that in the intentional culture it's always just about, you know, getting the output and not having any fun. You also
Mm.
want to reward, you want to create programs that have incentivized employees. That could be bonus structures, that could be barbecue days, it could be team building events, it could be travel events. All of these things are created with intention to drive alignment. And so I want to make sure that when you're looking to build an intentional culture, you think about all those things. It's not just about the roles, it's about the wider and broader view of what the roles are intended to accomplish and what the organization is going to accomplish together. Collectively, you're going to have an output where you're going to see that results will be delivered. People will have so much trust in what you're doing because they're challenged, but they're also allowed to be innovative. They're also allowed to have input, which generally allows an individual to become really engaged. And it could be seen for me when I was at Pepsi, at Frito-Lay. Our employees at Frito-Lay were at the very bottom of the structure. Like, they were the dock workers unloading trailers. Okay. But because of the culture at the company, they were so competitive and aligned with the output and the goals that they would look forward to having a unload trailer measurement beat. And they would often look to see which trailers were the cleanest after they were done, to compete with each other with the different teams. And you have like an afternoon shift team that would want to outproduce the morning shift or the graveyard shift. And those those are all by design when creating an intentional culture. And one of the stories that I really saw that changed my perspective around culture building was how Pepsi allowed some of those really entry level positions to write capexes. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever written a capex, but it includes a detailed business plan on why something needs to be bought or purchased or invested on, and that it's going to improve the output, the productivity, the efficiency within a team or organization. And it was encouraged that entry level employees write one capex a quarter. And this was to show that they were engaged in improving business output. And it was crazy because this is a dock worker, making $10 an hour or whatever it was, 25 years ago when I was working there. And they were writing documents about why we need to go buy a forklift or why we need this forklift attachment to be able to move freight into the rails, into the railings in their warehouse, right? And so all of this showed me what an intentional culture could deliver. These were engaged employees with the right mindset, wanting the right output. So Willie, let's talk a little bit about the wins. Once we got through the chaotic culture, how did the intentional culture come to be at your organization, and what are some of the stories you could share with this group?
Yeah, once we implemented the one-on-one reviews with each employee, sit down and this was a simple exercise where we would review those employees based on our core values and just do basically a check. Are we aligned? Are we living these core values in our business? And then we ask basically two questions. What is working for you in your role and what is not working? And so we let them express how they were feeling about their role and that kind of stuff. And I felt like that's when we got buy-in to what we were doing because they could see us as the leadership team was serious about fixing our culture.
Exactly. And that's great that you mentioned that exercise because from the ones that were not aligned with where we were going, it allowed us to start to put some plans in place for either alignment to be created or we knew we were going to lose that employee.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And
And that's always one that's a tough one when you're in that situation. So, knowing we were going to have to let some people go, and that could have been, some of those early starters, the ones that helped grow the organization. How did that make you feel, Willie, when we were talking about intentionally building those culture and those teams?
yeah, first I would say in one way, it became quite easy to figure out who wasn't the right fit for us. In what which before would be such a hard conversation for me to have with an employee if I saw they were not aligned with what we wanted or what for our business. And it became an easier conversation because we had clear core values with bullet points on there that I could clearly point to why we're having this conversation. So that's something that I shared just a couple days with a business owner. How do you have those tough conversation? And I kind of pointed to our core values that we had in place, which made it that much easier to explain why we're having this conversation.
But you had to buy into the core values and you had to uphold them as the owner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So it became our roadmap, how we would deal with every issue, people issue in our business. And I remember back then I had a business partner and we said to ourselves, this is what we're holding ourselves accountable to and everybody in our business. And there's no wavering on that.
Yeah, and this is why it's called the intentional culture because you're building it with intent and you're raising the bar for your organization. So you must have had to make some tough decisions and had to let go of some very close allies. What was your toughest firing or breakup there, Willie?
Oh boy. I remember going in one morning and the decision I think I made at night that now is the time. We had a couple people in management in higher roles that I could just clearly see weren't the right fit. And yeah, it just had to happen. So uh, now thinking back, it's like once I had made that decision. It wasn't that hard to do, but it had to be done. And I think sometimes us as business owner, we fear, well, man, that person has all these good capabilities, and we kind of don't know how it's all going to come together without them there. But I can tell you, those were the best decisions I made, to let those two key people go. Where I've now I had other people come forward and say, "How can I help you out with this?" And some people would come and praise me for, they thought never something like this would even happen. And so, yeah, it was, and that's when people saw me as the business owner. I was serious about keeping everyone accountable to these core values.
That's exactly it. That last statement, the organization saw that you were serious about change. Today, as leaders, we may let things slide, and that little slide becomes your culture. We
Yeah.
heard last week, hey, there's some people that they just don't listen. Like we give them a core values, it goes in one ear, goes out the other. Allowing that to happen sets the tone for the culture, right? And I know, it's hard in some markets, to find good talent. It is hard, but overcoming it with a strategic plan will ensure that you can actually implement that culture for the long term of your organization. I, from experience, can tell you, I've had to fire my own brother. My little brother, I had to fire him because he was not a fit for the organization that I was at. And what I saw as a requirement for our teams, he was just not the guy. And so I've had to do that. Last year, I went to El Salvador in December, where I own a group of companies, and I fired my brother-in-law because he is not going to be the general manager that I wanted for my organization down there. It's staying true to who you are and what you expect out of your organization. They're hard and tough conversations. They're not easy. No one here is going to tell you that these are easy to do. But
Mm.
for the long term of your organization, it is going to be the right decision. And you might go through a couple of those until you finally land on the right one, but you'll know it when you get there. So, what I want to say about this intentional culture is that it is critical that you stay consistent. High performing teams and high performing organizations don't get there by fluke. They don't get there by chance. They get there because they're constantly working at it. And from top to bottom, everybody is in indoctrinated into this methodology of thinking. So think of, like, at the low levels in the organization, entry points. You start day one. Who are they going to interact with? For the most part, they're going to interact with coworkers at the field level. They're going to interact with their shift supervisor or their field supervisor. So if those people don't have the right mindset and the right alignment to your culture, forget about it. It's never going to stick. So, in intentional culture building, you have to focus in the ground level. As much as the leadership team is expected to uphold it, you have to see it at the field level. That means out in your satellite locations. It means out in the field. It means going out there doing audits with your team on site. It means asking them, like you said, Willie, on those one with ones, how they're performing. Why do they like what they do? Why don't they like what they do? And getting their buy-in so that you can make the changes to get them in align with your organizational goals. Okay. So, um, as we talk through, you know, going forward, I will ask that we start to identify today what's working in your organization from a cultural standpoint. Where are you? Right? Like, where are you? And which one of these four categories? And we have a tool that we have now aligned and presented into our course. In that toolbox, you're going to find the spreadsheet that is going to give you the four cultures, and you're going to be able to identify them and do a questionnaire, and you can see where are you in your organization today. From there, you're going to have some call to action and some steps that you're going to have to take about
Mm.
where you want to see your organization go, and what are the steps you're going to need to do to get into that ideal culture for your business. right? You want to ask yourself, what kind of culture do you want to thrive in? What culture do you want to create? So let's start to identify it. And remember that culture is everyone's responsibility. It starts with leadership as setting the tone, but it requires everybody in the organization to follow.
Hmm. Yeah, and hey guys, let's just be honest with ourselves. Figuring out and building the right culture in our business is the last thing on our minds, or at least it was for me. But there's one thing, culture is that one thing that will make or break you and your business. I that's this is something that I was told before, and I thought culture isn't, or it wasn't important to me. But the thing is, it wasn't explained in depth, so I could understand the importance for a culture, especially when you're building a business and you're growing it and your team is growing. Culture is number one.
Absolutely. You know, as you start off, right? You know, you're always thinking, I need X revenue. I need to sell this product. I need this profitability. I need to manage this cost, right? Those are the general KPIs that as an owner, you're looking at and as a team leader. And you're right. You forget about, oh man, what is my culture doing? How are my people interacting? How are they engaging? And what type of decision making are they putting in place? How are they coming to those decisions? Why are they deciding those things? And it's all geared around the culture that they are working in. So once you start to really get a grip on it and have the right people, it just the results will come because organically people are doing things the right way. You're not having to worry about having to go sell when you have motivated people in your team that are going to go sell. They want that challenge. You don't have to worry about, hey, are my people going to show up on time? Are they going to be reliable? Are they going to do all these things? Because they internally, someone's going to call them out. They're going to say in a crew type of work environment where you've got landscapers or HVAC guys or service type industries, the one guy shows up late, crew's affected. You're hurting our efficiency. We should have already been at our first job site by now. Why are you 15 minutes late, right? And so the team starts to hold accountability, and it starts to really set the tone across the organization. So yeah, let's open it up a little bit for some Q&A, Willie, and let's see what our community members would like to have cleared up tonight.
Absolutely. Well, anyone feel welcome to ask any questions. Yeah, we want to hear what are your challenges currently, and let's help you figure them out.
Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourselves. Who's struggling with culture today in the workplace? I'm going to start with you. Oh,
Adam, there.
Pat, go ahead, Pat.
Well, I was listening to you guys all this while, and my question is, how do I make my best interest as my employee's best interest? Because most of the time, what I am coming across in my business is my best interest is not necessarily my employee's best interest. And I will give you an example. So I have created a culture where I tell my people that we have, like, it's very safety oriented. Like, if we screw up one thing, it could affect multiple things. Like, our it can affect cost, it can affect our relationship with our customer, so on and so forth. And I'll give you an example. I tell my guys, I'm in a trucking industry. I have like a fleet of about 10 trucks, and have people, about 12 to 13 team members. So I always tell them, put in a little bit of extra effort before you guys go home, and make sure everything is shut off and everything is, good to go for the next day. Just, a week ago, and this has happened multiple times. One of the drivers left the fridge on in the truck. Next day, the batteries are dead. Now, $800 out of my pocket. I cannot charge that to my driver, because if I do that, he's going to quit, and that will leave me with an empty seat. Now in our industry, it's very hard to kind of find people with the, because it you know, you have, it's class one. Not many people have B train experience. Not many people have, dangerous good experience. The list goes on and on and on. So, I'm finding it very tough to communicate that, your extra 5 minutes is going to save me a lot of money. From their standpoint, they're done with the day, they're going to get paid their load, they just want to go home.
Mhm.
Most of these guys that I come across hate their job. That's the fact of the matter. They're only doing this for the paycheck. Now, that
Right.
is a very bad motivation to have. How do
Right.
we change that mindset? And because I obviously I cannot like school them. They're like grown ups, like, you know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
something very challenging, because it's with one mistake, $700, $800 gone. You cannot
Right.
recover that cost. So that's what,
Yes.
how do I create that culture where we have a common interest?
Yeah. I love to
Hector,
hit on this one. You want
I
it,
was
Willie?
going to say Hector is the expert in this.
This is one where I like to engage people through knowledge. So what I would do, Padam, is every month, when you get your financial statement on every extra cost that you've spent because of mismanagement, I would share that with your team. I would say, guys, last month I had to absorb $1,000, $10,000 of miscellaneous expenses that the group did not have to spend. Think, guys, this is money that I could invest back in the business. I could buy new fridges. I could give you bonuses. I could do all of these other things back into the business, but instead it's wasted money. So I'm going to empower you through knowledge, guys, to help me overcome this. And if we get this number, I can show you my 2024 numbers, and let's say you spent $50,000 in miscellaneous expenses. You could say, if we can bring this down by 10% in 2025, man, I will ensure that I give you guys whatever bonus you want to do that. Invest it back in your team. You can motivate them through pay. It sounds like they like to be paid, and that's why they do what they do. So I would structure a system or a process that enables them to earn a little more as long as they're costing you less. And that's one R&R program that I would implement. But the key component is this, is through the sharing of data. Because as you share the data, people will become inclined to do the right thing. And that's when you're going to know long term, those are the players I want on this team. If they continue to do the wrong things, even after they've been shown the numbers and they understand the impact that it's having to the organization, put a circle under that name and start to look to how you're going to replace that person. Because no matter what, that individual is not in it for the team. They're only in it for themselves on the long term. It's a long term strategy. It's not to say go fire them today because they're not necessarily doing enough that warrants you to fire them. But it's an indicator that long term, they're not going to have the best interest of the organization in mind as the organization grows. So that's how I would tackle it, Padam, and that's how I would structure it first. Data, share the impact, create a burning bridge, and ask them to jump, right? The platform's burning. You got to jump. You got to come help me. We have a problem. I'm spending so much money, guys. Like, I need your help. Make yourself, sort of vulnerable to your team so that they can connect to the pain. And that's how I would do it. And that starts to generally create a mind shift. And that's how I've been able to overcome some of those scenarios in the past.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm
And
going to implement
if
it.
Sorry, go ahead, Padam.
Well, I'm gonna implement so far. I think I'll take a bit of the blame, because I have a cost per truck, but I'm not too detailed that the cost should be differentiated between unnecessary cost. There's some genuine cost that will be there. You cannot take that away. Like
Right.
the example that I gave, $800 for this is like a stupidity cost. This is the cost that I paid for someone being stupid, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So I think I'm
good.
going to categorize my cost as a genuine cost, and being lazy cost. Like, you know what I mean? If
Yes.
you put in one bit of extra minute, it will save me a lot of money. And And you know what? I've tried this before. The other challenge that comes with it is, our revenues are so tight that, you have to kind of fit everything in that little box. You know what I mean? And there's only that much you can fit in. But still, I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna try my best. We'll see things change in about, let's say, 3 months or whatever, right? I'll keep you
Yeah,
guys posted.
keep us posted. Willie, you've overcome some of the sim challenges too.
Yeah, what I was going to add was that we have had the same challenges where people didn't take it seriously. And like Hector was saying, put a circle around that name and start looking. And and the thing is, if you have to actually let a person go based on he or she wasn't willing to change, that kind of wakes up the rest of the team, is
That's
what I,
true.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, there's
And
one actually quote that I developed my own is that's it's hire slow, fire fast.
yeah.
You have to let people go. That does not line up with your like work ethic, and it's easy to tell. Like first 90 days, you can tell like the things they do and if it's going to be a good fit or not. And that's I think very important to have the right people. I figured out like in my own experience you're better off to kind of park your truck, for example, for a couple of weeks and take that cost rather than giving them that asset and and putting them to work and then have a bigger cost of maintenance.
Mm,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And so that's how you're going to find that right fit, enable them to make them have the right decision making ability, giving them the numbers, right? Having them feel the pain. And I always used to say this, in distribution centers where we were waste money because we were inefficient. I'd always say, look, guys, last year we spent $180,000 of wasteful activity. And I would share that with everybody. And I'd say, this is the equivalent to 3, 4 bodies. Remember when we're struggling, we're having to work late, we're falling behind. This is 4 bodies that we could have had here and made things a lot more efficient, but we wasted that money. We threw it all away. Or, you wanted the nice forklifts. You wanted the ones that, had, electric forklifts versus the propane forklifts. We could have bought 3 of those, but we couldn't because we threw the money away. We flushed it away. Or in service industries, you want the nice pickup trucks and the nice tools. Sure, we could do all that, but we flushed it all away. Make it relevant
mm,
back to their pain points. What do they find frustrating? And what do they find prideful? They like driving nice trucks, nice, beautiful, shiny Kenworths, right? And whatever your
mm.
preference is. Then say, guys, you want me to buy those? You want me to maintain them? I need to have the money to be able to do that. But if I'm wasting it, if I'm flushing $1,000 or $10,000 a month because you're keeping the fridge on at night and you're not plugging in the winter, and I have to go spend all this money to restart the truck, that affects the ability of me maintaining the truck and keeping it to your standard. So let's work together. By communicating, making it yourself vulnerable, you get buy-in generally. When you don't, circle the name. That's one that's not going to make it down the road.
And once you start implementing that, it starts building upon that where now drivers, while we experience that in our business, they start thinking, okay, if this is making such a difference, where else are we wasting? So they are starting to help you out find other areas that we can actually save, and so they can have the nicer truck or the whatever.
Yeah, and it's crazy once you get into what motivates the individual, right? And
Yeah.
in those service industries like truck driving and all the others, the asset means so much to them. It's a pride to be driving that nice truck. So let's help them be part of that and that problem solving. All right. What other questions do we have with team culture? What else? What other pain points are we seeing out there, and what can we address for you guys tonight?
Is it okay? Sorry, is it okay to have a blend of sort of all the cultures?
In different times of the business, it can be okay. When you're growing and you're beginning, surely you're going to be that first, happy accident type culture, and that's okay. When you're starting a new division in an already established organization, brand new divisions, they're not like attached to the more standing divisions. Sure, you're going to have that happy accident culture come to be because they're brand new to the team. As you grow, you're going to want to set some boundaries. So you're going to shift to that command and control, and that's okay, right? You're in that command and control culture, but you got to be aware of what the pitfalls are in each one of these stages. And as you continue to go through business cycles, you might be pushed to go into a chaotic culture because you just lost some accounts, or you might just gain some business that's forcing you to expand rapidly, and you just got to get things done. So you're gonna go chaotic, and that's okay. It's healthy as long as they are by design, and that you're in that state. So does that help answer for you, Mike?
Yeah, it does for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges you're seeing in your business, Mike? What are the culture things you're seeing today?
The culture where I'm at is, yeah, everyone is accepted and everyone sort of likes where they are. And which is nice. It makes it a lot easier. The managers love their position. They take running their divisions as like their own little companies. But in saying that, sometimes that doesn't always lead us to the end goal for the company. They're on their own path, and we need them to be on the company's path and the company's vision of where it wants to go. So that part of it, just getting them in line sometimes for the vision of the company, can be a challenge.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a mix of like what would be that happy accident with chaotic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you've got a small division where they run in silos, but they're not driven by division or by goals. They're just driven by what they believe is right.
yeah, yeah. It makes perfect sense.
So what I would do to challenge that in your role as the leader of the organization, I would say to them, okay, guys, like we now have a vision, we have core values, and we have structure that we need to adhere to. So it might actually be healthy for a short term to take the chaotic culture and turn it into a command and control for a short period while you get people to buy in, while you assess and review those leaders in each division. And after you're done all of that, it will now become organically moved to that healthy, intentional culture because you've built it. You've now created boundaries for where they can, live in.
No, that's perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah. All right. What other questions do we have out here tonight? We have some new people that I don't think I've met. Mark and Arnold. How are the cultures in your organizations? And we'll go to you, Mark.
Oh yeah, for my stuff, it's actually it's just me. So this kind of applies, but it kind of doesn't apply. So I'm just been making notes on it today, but I will be hiring soon. So I'm just this is actually really helpful for kind of just sort of guide me where I want to go to get that first person hired properly.
Excellent. Excellent.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it's really helpful.
Great, good to hear. Understanding, as you build your team, the type of quality of individuals and the type of culture you want to build in your organization right from the start will set you apart from many business owners, who don't know that yet. So great, good to hear. Arnold, how about you?
Okay, so for me, it's we don't really have much of a culture as of right now. That is something I should get into, and as far as building core values, I've got a couple of them written kind of out, but that's something we should definitely work on and getting that stuff done. It's we don't really have a whole lot of it as of now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Get on to that. Understanding your core values, and we've got the core values topic that we covered last week. So I'd encourage you to go back and watch that Zoom call. It speaks to, why the importance of the core values are there and how they will help move your organization along. And then it ties into culture and why these culture points are so important at the early stages, middle stages, or latter stages in your business, because it's always an ongoing thing. It's never set in stone, and it's never a one and done, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, we're here to help you through that.
for sure.
Yeah. All right,
Awesome.
James. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Willie.
Oh, Jay, no, go ahead. I was going to say, James, you got anything to add?
Yeah.
I my I have a very sore mouth. I was at the dentist, so I won't talk too much, but
Oh no.
yeah, no, definitely core values. I guess Willie, and when we were doing the mentorship course, we went through all that.
Yes.
As far as culture, I would say we're probably somewhat the same way. I think we have a vision and we kind of know where we're going, but we definitely have some of the team leads kind of just doing what they think is right. The
Mhm.
chaotic one more, I would say.
Yep.
Where communication even between, truck leaders and myself, one guy's kind of pulling one direction, one guy's pulling the other direction. And yeah, I would say that's definitely an area that we need to clear up some of the things for sure. But we have the company vision, we have the core values built. We just need to go harder on, I guess, implementing them or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
and that's great. I like the fact that you've identified already, understanding where you're at today is the beginning. And then challenging you and your leadership team to where you want to go, right? Being in a chaotic culture is okay short term. It's okay for now, but that's not where you want to live forever. So you got to say, guys, like we understand that you're making decisions because you think it's right, but let's bring it back to reality. Does it align to our core values? Does it align to who we want to be? And does it align to our standards? Every decision you're going to make, I want you to ask yourselves, does it align? Does it align? If it doesn't, stop and think first before you give the answer and give direction. And that is going to organically create that shift, that wave into that culture that you really want, which is that intentional, where it's structured, where people have say, where it fosters engagement, all of those organic things. But importantly, it allows for growth, because when a leader is consistent in their messaging and allowing others to share, if that leader leaves, that next wave now will continue to uphold the same messaging because they've been accustomed to it. But if the messaging is always different, leader from leader, and that leader leaves, somebody else comes in, those employees are going to say, well, that guy did it that way, and so I want to do it that way. I want to be led that way because that's how it was done, right? And so it might even be to the point where they're like, oh, the owner doesn't even know what they're talking about. We follow what this guy says. And that's away from the core values. It's away from what you want to do as an organization. So being mindful of that and being strategic, working through it little by little will help your organization grow. So
I sometimes feel as if that we have a certain way of doing certain things, and we'll have one guy, kind of going off the beaten path, and then it's to them, if I go and correct, it seems as if it's control, but
Mhm.
it's worked for so long, so I'm kind of narrow-minded to change it, right? This has worked for so long. We don't have much callbacks for specific things, so why would we change? If everybody does it the same way, this is kind of our brand, right?
Yeah, totally. And
And
that is great.
and I feel sometimes my one guy specifically, the one guy will be easy to call and ask, hey, what do you want done here, which can be very repetitive one way, but the other guy, he will rather just take a shot and guess, hoping he'll make the right choice, right? And then I'll be happy with that. So we definitely have both. We have different guys on the team for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It gives you a nice little framework of challenges to work around. Again, my coaching to this would be consistent. Consistent is the key so that you start to get alignment in both whether it's the flexible way of doing things or the more controlling in how they've been doing it. The answer in how you expect things to be done needs to be the consistent way. If you're gonna do it free, Willie, and you're gonna go all creative, the quality score better still be a 10, right? And if like that's it, like that's the standard. If you're not gonna follow the process, up to you. But if the quality drops, we're gonna have the same tough conversation, right? And so that's how I would just encourage that you stay true to the standards of the organization, and therefore your culture will remain the same across the board, right?
Mhm.
I think Daniel, I think you just joined us. I'm not sure if you've got any questions for us. We're coming around 8 p.m. now, so.
Hey, yeah, I just no, I think it's really good and very spot on what you guys are doing. I started mentorship with Willie about a year ago, and we were in that chaotic stage. The company was growing, and lots of people were needed to fulfill all the roles. And so after Willie explained the core values to me, and we built our own core values, it took me quite a while to buy into them myself. I had a hard time implementing them because I wasn't sure if I was bought in on them. But once we were bought in, we started enforcing it, and we had to let a couple guys go. And the other people saw that and knew that we were serious about the core values and where the company was going. So I think we're a little more in the control stage right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can do that for a short period of time to build the culture. Then the people that come to the company, I'm hoping, will see the culture and adapt to the culture rather than us having to try and cycle through people to get the right ones.
I love it. I love it. That's the right strategy, Daniel. You've got it. This is exactly it. You're now into that transitional phase where we're in control today. We're going to live in it for a year or two. But this is okay. This is by design so that when we have turnover, people coming in are going to learn the proper way, right? And I'll do this when I go to organizations and I work with them. At first, it's a shock because it's a lot of control. And people, and Willie will explain this to you. I remember having coffee with Willie, and he would say, "Man, it's too structured. Like this is way too structured. What you're doing, you may be handcuffing us." But patience is the key in that, because as soon as we got the right people, we got the systems in place, the intentional culture flourished, and the results came. It was there for us.
Yeah.
So really glad, Daniel, that you see it. And to all the owners and leaders on the call today, that's the key takeaway. Understand where you're at and understand where you want to go. Now you have been armed with the knowledge of the four cultures, and how you can pivot and move and transition through each one as it benefits the growth and the output of your organization. So yeah, I just wanna again thank you all for being here tonight. I hope you got some really good value out of it. As always, we look forward to having you join our community. Now, be active on our platform, post, share your thoughts. Love to hear one key takeaway from tonight. If you could go on that community and let's share with the group, what is one key learning that you're walking away with tonight? It would be great if you could all do that for us. Then we could start the communication and the chatter in that community. That would be great. And I look forward to talking to you all again next week. Willie, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, same here. Yeah, I was going to mention, yeah, we're new and just getting the community started, and the more interaction we can get in there, the better, I think, to get that going and feeling alive for everyone involved and getting the most out of it. So yeah, thank you all again for coming today, and looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, perfect. Have a good night.
All right, thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
good night.
And hope the Oilers win. See you later.